Yeah. 2026. Every block, every ballot, every voice. This ain't left or right. This is right now. OVC. Teachers shaping minds. Vets who stood strong. Gig workers hustling just to get along. Parents, elders, first time voters in line. Same clock ticking, same moment in time. No dark money whispers. No backroom deals. Daylight choices and the truth that's real. Labels don't own us. We bigger than signs. Accountability lives where democracy thrives.
Our vote counts. Yeah, remember the name. Every voice heard. We don't play no games. From the city to the plains, let freedom resound. Different stories, same future. United we found. Our vote counts. Stand tall, no doubt. Integrity first. Let the people speak loud. From the city to the plains, let freedom resound. Different stories, same future. United we
Clear facts, no
found.
spin. Education unlocked. Breaking down the process from the door to the box. Who earns the trust? Who shows up to serve? Asking the questions. Leaders got nerves. Neighborhoods talking. Town halls packed. Local voices first. Yeah, we built it like that. Different faiths, views, so walking as one. Democracy stronger when we all get it done. Yeah.
Our vote counts, yeah, remember the name. Every voice heard. We don't play no games. From coast to coast, let the movement expand. Power in the people, future in our hands. Our vote counts, stand tall, no doubt. When we show up informed, that's what it's all about. Our vote counts, stand tall, no doubt. When we show up informed, that's what it's all about.
This ain't no cycle. Nah, this is a standard. Long-term vision, principles planned. From schools to the boards, up to the higher seats. We connect the dots from the block to the streets. Peaceful power, respect and demand. Integrity measured by actions, not plans. OVC active, participation mounts. When the people stand ready, turnout counts. Yeah.
Our vote counts, yeah, remember the name. Every voice heard. We don't play no games. From the city to the plains, let freedom resound. Different stories, same future. United we found. Our vote counts, stand tall, no doubt. Integrity first. Let the people speak loud. From the city to the plains, let freedom resound. Different stories, same future. United we found.
Every voice,
Every voice,
every vote.
every vote.
Integrity, inclusion, accountability. OVC.
OVC.
Yeah. 2026. My vote counts. And so does yours.
All right, everyone. Welcome in. Welcome in. How's everybody doing? We are waiting on the candidate to come on up. So do your due diligence, which is send out the Daily Heart Me, repost it to your page, also share it to your story, and share it to anybody who would love to hear this great conversation we're about to have with Diop Harris. So feel free to tap the live so we can quickly get on the FYP. Also, if you would love to participate in our goals, feel free to do that as well. It's not required, but we appreciate anything that helps. All right. So, excuse me. How's everybody doing thus far on this wonderful Thursday? I am glad it's Friday Eve, so we can go ahead and get the weekend started. As we've always said since the start of the primaries, and as of last month, all the candidates that are running on federal, state, and local levels will be ramping up their campaigns. And a lot of them are going to have primaries starting March the 3rd. So if you're in states like Arkansas, forgive me if I don't have the full list in front of me, but I know for sure Arkansas will have primaries March the 3rd. I think Texas as well. Be sure to check your voter registration just to make sure that your voter registration is active. And do that all the way up until it's time for you to vote, because there's always some funny business going on when it comes to knocking people off the voter rolls without any explanation. So I suggest to go ahead and check on a weekly basis just to make sure that your voter registration is active. Okay, thank you all for being here thus far. We do have only 2K likes. Come on, y'all. Go ahead and power tap. We need to get on the FYP as quickly as possible. So let's see if we can get about 2K likes in the next 3 minutes before we have the candidate come up. And also, as we said before, we are booked and busy. Almost every day this week, we will have at least 2 candidates that we will be holding a platform for to have a conversation about their campaign. As we said, a lot of candidates are ramping up their campaigns. That means they need more exposure. So feel free to drop in and just listen to this conversation that we will have with these candidates. As of tonight, we will be having this candidate here to the left, what we have on this flyer. He is running for U.S. House of Representatives in District 4. He's actually a young candidate, so it's very inspiring that he decided to put his hat into the ring to run. So you never know what will happen in these primaries. We've stressed this enough. Don't wait until the actual general election in November to vote. To me, the most important one and the first thing you should do is to make sure you voice your opinion at the ballot box in the primaries, because that would determine the person that you will want to run in the general election. So don't wait for somebody to make a decision for you in the primaries. Make your voices heard during the primaries, and that way they can advance into the general election. Now, there are instances, depending on the state, where if certain people do not have a challenger in the primary, they will not hold the election. Instead, they will automatically advance them to the general. We did have a few candidates in the past that we have held a conversation with where they were running unopposed in their primaries, so they automatically advanced them to the general election. So always be sure, if there's more than one candidate in that party that's running, do your due diligence in doing your research. We do our best to reach out to the candidates as much as we can to give them a platform. But hey, depending on their schedules and if their time is allotted, they will come here to speak with us. But that is not a given. We do appreciate every candidate that does come to speak with us because we built this from the bottom with no promotions, any type of resources whatsoever. We just ultimately came together with like minds of people who are passionate about politics and decided that it's cool to have debates. Debates are refreshing, and we all love to do that. That's how we ultimately came together. But we also understood that getting to know the candidates in order to make a change is just as important. So thank you all for being here this far. It is much needed. And as we wait on the candidate to come, be sure to go ahead and continue. Let's hit this goal of 10K likes. We have about 6.3K thus far. So let's see if we can do that. And I do have a question for you all in the chat. How are you all feeling thus far? There are a lot of special elections that have happened in the last couple of weeks where a lot of Democratic candidates have won their special elections in deep red districts. Recently, in a small town in Texas, there was a mayoral race that was ran. I think the city was outside of Austin. So forgive me, I do not know the name of the city. But a candidate won, actually flipped that seat from Republican to Democrat for that mayor seat. So congratulations to her. There also have been special elections in states such as Georgia, Louisiana as well, and a couple that we mentioned in the past few weeks regarding a state Senate seat in Texas as well. So this is pretty much unprecedented in my opinion. I think this is a lot bigger than the primaries back in 2010 after Obama's first term. People talked about Obama's first term, where the House and the Senate pretty much flipped majority Republican during the midterms in 2010, which in turn made it a lot difficult for him to pass a lot of things that he wanted in the legislative side. But I believe, from what the trends are seeing, that it may be bigger of a flip than it was in 2010. So this 2026 midterm, if the numbers hold up, it will be a lot bigger. If anybody can find, I didn't see Diop in the chat, so sorry if I've been talking. If I do, I will invite him up, but I don't see him on my side. Let's see. I don't see him. If Diop is in the chat, please click the two people icon down at the bottom right hand corner, or the bottom of your I'm not sure if Diop is in here, but if you are, please click the two people icon down at the bottom of your screen, because I can't see him. So if he does have a private page, that is something that Diop will have to do. Diop will have to request up, and then the host can bring them up. Okay, so in the meantime, you all are doing really, really well. We have about 8.7K, so let's see if we can hit 10K. We're getting there pretty fast, so that's the good thing. But other than that, I'm glad you all are in here thus far. Hello. I'm glad you all. And give me 1 second. I'm going to switch over my earbuds. Okay,
right.
can you hear me, Diop?
Yes, I can hear you. You're just trying to make sure we get our right background here. Apologies for the technical difficulties on our end.
Okay. Okay, can you hear me now?
I can hear you. Can you hear us?
Yes, sorry. I had to switch over my audio. Thank you for being here. Are you able to turn on your camera, please?
Yeah, that's what we're looking to do.
Okay, if you are needed to turn on your camera, just click on the camera, and then after you do that, it will prompt you to select effects, and then click on the first green screen option, and then from there it will prompt you to go through your gallery on your phone to select the background that we gave you.
Here we are.
All right, that's perfect. Okay. All right, let me know whenever you're ready. We'll go ahead and get started.
I'm all good.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Our Vote Counts Town Hall. I am your moderator, Jazz B. And for those who are not familiar with Our Vote Counts, we are a nonpartisan coalition of citizens from diverse states and backgrounds, unified by a shared commitment to empowering voters and promoting candidates who stand for integrity, inclusion, and accountability in the upcoming elections. Formed by a collective of educators, veterans, and small business owners, and students, community advocates, OVC represents the strength of unity across geography, race, and ideology. While our stories are different, our mission is still the same: to ensure that every voice is heard and every voice truly counts. Our OVC is more than just a name. For those who don't know, it is a promise, it's a commitment, it's a movement, and a rallying cry for democracy. So together, we're shaping a future one informed vote at a time. So tonight, we're joined by Diop Harris. Diop is running as a Democrat candidate in the U.S. House of Representatives for Michigan's 4th Congressional District. That district consists of Allegan, Van Buren counties. Is that correct? I know sometimes the district is up to date. Okay, and that covers mainly towns of Buren, Calhoun, Kalamazoo, and Ottawa. So we'll be talking about Diop's background, his vision for the district, and of course, taking your questions live, everyone. So Diop, after each set of questions, I will allow one person to come up and ask you a question. And though in between those topic questions, I'll break in between to give you some quick rapid fire questions. There will be one set that's more political in nature, and then the last set of rapid fire questions are more fun to kind of close it out. All right?
Sounds good.
So I've learned that you are a Battle Creek native and a member of the Nottawasapi. Hope I said that right. Is that Nottawasapi?
Nottawasapi.
Nottawasapi, yes. Nottawasapi Huron Band of the Potawatomi. Is that correct?
Potawatomi.
Potawatomi, okay, and a former legislative correspondent for Senator Sherrod Brown. Wow. And you combine your high level of federal policy experience with a deep personal connection to the Southwest Michigan area, having to grow up in a household supported by social safety nets. You're running a campaign focused on lowering healthcare and childcare costs while protecting labor unions and advocating for working families. So thank you for joining us. So with that being said, with your background that I just highlighted, could you tell me what was the moment that told you, okay, it's time for me to run for Congress and make a difference for my districts?
Yeah, absolutely. And first off, I want to say thank you, Jasby. Thank you, Our Vote Counts, for having me on today. It's a pleasure to talk about this kind of work. The moment for me was January 20th, 2009. During the noon hour, my English teacher, we didn't have a Socratic Circle that day. He rolled in the TV and we got to watch Barack Obama become president. And in that moment, I'm a freshman in high school. It's the deepest, darkest parts of the recession. But yet I felt hope in that moment. And I knew that feeling wasn't just for me. I knew I had to spread that feeling. And that's when I knew I had to enter public service. So early in my career, what that looked like was more like community service and philanthropy. That really got me involved in the community and understanding that we needed more resources. There's a lot of people doing a lot of good work in our communities at the local level. There's some folks from our communities doing that same good work at the state level in Lansing, Michigan. But from my experience, as I got further in my career and eventually got a chance to intern in Washington, D.C., what I noticed was that there was, it felt like less than zero representation from folks who came from Southwest Michigan, who came from places who, might not have a big city like Detroit, but we still mean something here. I come from Battle Creek, Michigan, born and bred. We're Cereal City, USA. We are where Kellogg's and Post cereal were born, very much a part of the identity of our city. We may be a small town of 50,000, but we've got rich history. And that's sort of the makeup of our district. But yet the rest of the country looks at us as flyover country. So therefore, we don't have that representation in Washington. We get passed over for other districts. And while I'm not going to say, I want to put our district over another, I believe that we should have a fighter, and we don't have that. You mentioned I worked for Sherrod Brown. Sadly, he didn't win re-election, and I was a staffer for him. So the voters told me to go home. And, when I went home, I, reevaluated. Do I continue my life as a staffer, or do I enter public service and run for office and run for a congressional seat where I saw, the impact where I could make most? And here, our congressperson is Bill Huizenga. He is a puppet of Betsy DeVos. He is a creepazoid who's helping out the creepy caucus cover up. And you can say all of the high level political issues, but at the bottom level, he's locked his office doors. He's turned off his office phones. We don't have a congressperson right now. So at the very least, I'm running to make it so that we have a congressperson, not only in DC, but back home doing the work. And I want our folks to know in Washington, they got somebody working for them, even when they're not paying attention, not reading the news, and know they can rest easier knowing that they've got a fighter bringing investments back home and fighting a good fight up there for folks.
Absolutely, and thank you for that. Especially you mentioned being a fighter, and that is on track. The one question I want to ask you before we get into the serious topic. So we know, in light of Black History Month, I wanted to ask you a question regarding this. So I understand that your platform is to represent your region, and more profoundly, in regards to Black history, from the Battle Creek Nation being home to Sojourner Truth, to the historic Black pioneer settlements from Southwest Michigan, but also as a member of the Nottawasepi Huron Band of your group, and also being a Black leader of you growing up in your district. How does that legacy of those who fought for freedom and equity of Michigan 4th inform the way you plan to lead for Congress?
Oh, it's at the fore of everything. The reason why I'm in this fight is the bloodline that I come from. starting with my mom. She is an elected tribal leader for my tribal nation. Previously was the tribal chair, so pretty much the tribal chief. And there are not too many women chiefs in Indian country at all. She was one of the few. She continues to serve. Her mother was a survivor of an Indian boarding school. As a teenager, her and her siblings were kidnapped by the state of Michigan and were sent up to Sault Ste. Marie Industrial Boarding School. First day, they had lye soaked in their hair and it was cut off. And they were beaten anytime they sung their native songs and spoke in their native language. And yet my grandmother was able to run away and escape from that facility, run all the way from the upper peninsula all the way down to the lower peninsula back to where our people are from. And that's fight. Before her, Andrew Jackson was trying to round up our people on the Trail of Tears during the Indian Removal Act days along my bloodline. Chief Mugwago, he was our chief when they were trying to pull us off. He actually brought us back and made sure that our people are on our reservation today. So we have a homeland to build upon. So that's the legacy that I come from. And that's my indigenous side. On my black side, my grandmother was a Black Panther in Detroit, Michigan. That's where sort of my father's family comes from. And so I've just got this legacy of fight and survivalhood in my blood. I worked in DC in 2020 and I had this light bulb moment. It was during the Summer of Love, during the George Floyd protests. And, our great late John Lewis passed away during that moment. And while we're, fighting for our rights, realizing that our leaders, our heroes of the past are gone. They're not here to save us. So it's going to take us to stand up and fight for our own communities and take ownership of this fight right now. And so I'm inspired by that movement and by his message. I'm not waiting for someone else to come and take reins and fight for these things. I'm going to band together my troops and make sure my community knows they can do these things right now. I worked on 2022 in 2022 on the midterms in Michigan. And, we thought we were going to get wiped out. And I was knocking doors for Hillary Skolton at the time, and I kept these two pins in my pocket. One was a pro-life message, or a pro-choice message. Let me not get that one wrong, because we are fighting to constitute reproductive rights in the Michigan State Legislature as a result of the Dobbs decision. I also kept another pin in my pocket. A threat to justice anywhere injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And so I kept those pins in my pocket to center myself and remind myself why I was doing this work. It wasn't for any political reason. It was to fight for my community. And in 2022, Michigan actually experienced a blue wave locally. We won we won the state house, the state senate, and we won the governorship. We were trifecta. And that was running on a pro-choice message, running on unabashedly pro-civil rights, pro-people. And that instills in me that kind of fight is how we get through this. It's not by continuing to vote against Donald Trump or vote against the Republicans. No, we have to offer something different. It's not voting for the Democratic Party. It's voting for local fighters all over the place. I believe I'm that for my community. But I know there's Isaiah Martin down in Texas. There's Rebecca Cook in Wisconsin. There's, hopefully Deja Fox can come back in Arizona at some point. But there's our fighter over in New Jersey who just won her primary. So there's a bunch of us. And while we have to trust that work is happening, we all got to decide that we're going to take ownership on our own communities and get it going locally first.
Absolutely, and thank you for that. And just to go back on your background, on one side you have your indigenous side, and the other side is the history of your black side, highlighting that as far as your family being one of your family members being a part of the Black Panther Party. If anything, no matter how this, just in my opinion, I think, no matter how this race goes, I think you should write a book, because that is very unique of a story that you have. And
can I share something real quick? Because I sort of cut myself out there. I want to talk more explicitly about sort of Chairman Fred and his work. And I believe that I'm carrying on his work, at least in my own district, rebuilding the Rainbow Coalition. I'm very inspired by his work. How at a time when we're extremely divided was he able to band together Black people, or working class Blacks, working class Latinos, and working class whites around police brutality? How was he able to do that? That tells me that can be replicated. It's going to take strength and courage, but the explicit work of my campaign is to rebuild that Rainbow Coalition. And it's to bring about a campaign that, ties our communities together. And it's economic solidarity. This isn't about DEI, class warfare, or race warfare. This is class warfare. It's the 1% against us all. And we all can fight to make sure our healthcare system actually works for us, make sure our education system teaches us. I believe we can fight the climate crisis that's coming, and we can make a ton of money off of it. We can revolutionize our technology. And ain't none of this got to do with culture or skin color. This affects all of us. So if we can band together as working as a multicultural, multi-generational coalition, we can beat back Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk. These are individuals. But we've got to decide at a point that we're going to let go of these divisions. I don't care if you want to watch Kid Rock, but I do care that, your people have jobs, and those jobs are actually equipped with livable wages. So I'm going to be putting myself in some very uncomfortable positions, but it's all to make sure that we got somebody representing us in Washington, D.C. So very inspired by the work of Chairman Fred.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. Just talking more depth about Chairman Fred. And I think this also ties into the next topic I'm going to get into, is regarding the economy, specifically about jobs and cost of living. So my first question to you regarding this is, regarding, you are a vocal supporter of the PRO Act. And for those who are not familiar with the PRO Act, that is just a way to rebuild the middle class, such as investing more federal tax dollars into more green manufacturing plants, specifically in places like Michigan, which is a very big hub when it comes to unions such as the UAW. But also, I wanted to ask you specifically, once you become a member of the House, how would you ensure that the PRO Act isn't just a paper protection, but a tool that forces companies receiving federal subsidies in your district to remain neutral during the union drives? Can you tell me more about how would you continue on with the PRO Act, in your opinion?
Yeah, so, and you see this with, revolutionary pieces of legislation like Dodd-Frank. They sort of promise to do all of these things. But at the end of the day, you got to make sure our federal regulators have teeth. If the law is there and the Supreme Court sort of rolling back certain provisions, that doesn't mean that the FCC, or in this case with labor rights, OSHA or the NLRB can't act in certain ways. So we have to empower those sorts of regulators to do that work. But honestly, when we're talking about union membership, we got to lock arms and show real solidarity. That means human beings putting their lives on the line. I'm not saying standing on a strike line is like what was happening in the 1900s, but we have to be willing to show up. We have to be willing to sign letters, show up to strike lines, and make demands when they're politically unpopular. That's how workers have real leverage. It's not by waiting for political opportune moments when, contracts and deals have already been made and workers have given up all their leverage. It's right when the demands are getting ready to be vocalized in a public manner. Workers need to have the weight of members of Congress behind them. So I'm not going to rely too much on the federal government here. We need to rely on union organizing. This is old school type of work. And so that's really what my campaign represents. We're going to be so forward looking that we're actually going to be feeling old school here. So I feel like on this answer, we really need to be boots on the ground. We need to be also organizing more unions. The UAW is stronger when the SEIU is stronger, when AFG is stronger, when all industries can say, look, serial workers are making this much. That means we should be making that. Like, it's all helping each other out. So it's not just, nurses got this contract, we're good. No, it's now we need to push the needle with train workers and over there. So we're going to have to, in this mutual aid, I can go on, but it's standing there when it's unpopular, when when things are tough, when it's the beginning of these stages, so folks know that people can fight for themselves.
Absolutely. And I think that also kind of goes into just the cost of living, specifically around housing. So, as you know, and for the audience that knows that housing is going up just as much as other things that we have to live with on a day-to-day basis. But in regards to that, on a federal level, could you tell me, would you advocate more for a rent cap or any types of subsidy models to support preventing working class residents from being priced out of their own neighborhoods? Could you tell me what that look like, or do you have any policy prescriptions regarding this?
Yeah. In terms of a rent cap, that would be something I would be supportive of. Obviously, when you're talking about a national number, we're going to have to work that out depending on markets. But I believe that, we can't continue to treat, the market as if, folks can actually afford it. We've got to match dollars with reality here. But at the same time, I don't think we have folks who have a property and they enter this line of work so that they can actually support housing, so that they can offer more options to folks. There are actually builders who love just building houses. And so we can't imagine every housing provider to be the worst landlord. I know some of these folks in my own personal life. So I believe the solution here is to empower local housing providers, and we sort of cut the cord from private equity and sort of these corporate management companies. So we have folks who have one or two or three, maybe even 3 to 5 properties in which they have an intimate relationship with not only the tenants or whoever they eventually sell these units to, but they have an intimate relationship with the buildings themselves. They're not managing hundreds of properties and letting apartment buildings go to waste. You empower local housing providers. They'll be more accountable to city and local governments. People will trust them more over. I won't go into specific companies, but what private equity is doing, they're buying up a bunch of single family homes around the country, turning them into duplexes, and getting double the rent out of a mortgage they spent pennies on, all for profit margin. And so folks are left without housing options. They're choosing between food and medicine, and whether or not their kids are able to go on vacation or go to a summer camp, which would offer enrichment. So folks are having to stretch thin because of greedy decision making. So I would encourage or I would empower local housing providers. I would sort of work and incentivize, sort of rezoning in a way that allowed properties to be built faster. Not in a way that would, put our environment at risk, but in a way to actually meet the moment. Are we going to solve this or what? So that's the type of attitude I would take with this. We need to actually work with developers here. I've never met a bleeding heart liberal who is able to build a house, but I know a bunch of builders who can. But I know there are folks in their communities who care about them and actively want to shape them, and they should be at the table too. So we just need to make sure we're all talking here, but remain focused on providing housing for all here. And just to top off this conversation, I just want to say, talking about our unhoused population, we need to start at the very minimum with the housing first policy agenda here. If folks don't have a place to stay, if they don't have a place to shower, how are they going to make these other things work? To Thomas Massey, to Mike Johnson, how in the hell are they going to get a job and work if they can't show up as their best selves, or if they don't have transportation or these other supports. So, there's tons to be done, but we got to start by making sure people have the human necessity of shelter.
And just to follow what you mentioned about housing and certain private equity firms buying out homes, could you also kind of tackle it into the more financial institution portion, specifically about the Glass-Steagall Act? You know, a lot of those phrases go around like it's too big to fail, therefore we need to go in and save them. I know that Senator Elizabeth Warren and rest in peace to Senator John McCain, they were big proponents of reversing that. But from what I recall, I don't think it actually went all the way through. Could you talk more about how would you add more regulations to banks whenever they do like predatory lending? Or go ahead. I'm sorry. You can speak to
No,
that.
I'm just getting excited for the question. I used to work at a nonprofit called Americans for Financial Reform, and this is what we focused on. It was a nonprofit actually started by Professor Elizabeth Warren during the inception of the Dodd-Frank Act, originally set up to support the passage of. Then when it passed, it was set up to support it. And then as we go into the future, it was set up to bolster the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, or the CFPB. So I did a lot of work in this space. So I definitely am support of restoring Glass-Steagall, which was and the offset of the Great Depression, making it so sort of your more public banking and your more speculative banking were separated. And so when that line was blurred or eliminated during the Clinton era, that's what led to the '07 Great Recession. And sort of Dodd-Frank was a response to that. Now, did it restore Glass-Steagall all the way? No. But it put in a lot of measures that would hopefully make banks more accountable. And I say hopefully with all of the asterisks in the world, because we saw during 2022 sort of the bank run failure we saw there, starting with Silicon Valley Bank, that those Dodd-Frank protections don't hold up. So we're going to have to envision a new Glass-Steagall, a new Dodd-Frank. In the meantime, what we shouldn't do is what Russ Vogt is doing at the CFPB. Workers have been laid off for over a year there. And meanwhile, banks, predatory lenders like payday lenders, harmful debt collectors, folks who are putting, inaccurate reports on credit reports, making it so folks can't get cars, jobs, homes, all of these things. The CFPB is there to protect us, but if there's no supervisors at work, they can't. And so Russ Vogt, Trump's OMB guy, he's preventing the CFPB from protecting us. We had Lena Khan at the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission. And there, she was, shutting down, sort of antitrust practices, and making sure these sort of bad corporate actors were held in check. And there was a big reason why, big corporate actors did not like her, and were giddy and are very oppositional to her role that she plays in New York City politics. It was kind of
Absolutely.
odd that
And
Jamie
I'm
Benton
glad
Smith was
you
a fan
brought
of
up
her.
former Chairman Lena Khan, because a lot of people don't know about her, but she's done great work in the last administration, from banning junk fees when it comes to like hotels and buying like entertainment tickets, like the click to cancel rule. It used to make different companies used to make it very hard for people to cancel their subscriptions. Well, she helped stop that. Also blocking certain mergers from happening. But I can go on and on. But yes, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, and I want to say the coalition that I was just a part of at Americans for Financial Reform, they just dropped a bill that would put a 36% rate cap on payday lenders. So it would sort of take the bad actors out of payday lending, but still offer a short-term lending solution for folks. So the folks I was working with, yes, they were fighting Wall Street's wealth extraction, but they were also proposing the solution for, sort of our greener future. I'm in full favor of postal banking, allowing, post offices to offer short-term loans. I'm in favor of public banking, allowing, public funds, a bank for all of us and not corporate actors, to offer some of these short-term loan options. but am very invested in the idea of economic justice being the thorough point of us pursuing all of the other justices.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. So I'm going to go ahead and allow anyone who would like to ask Diop a question regarding what we talked about. We talked about a number of things thus far within this short amount of time. So we talked about the FTC chair when it came to regulating antitrust policies, also having a lot of institutions be accountable. We also touched on the housing policies and the unhoused. Also, we talked about actual unions and the manufacturing industry in Michigan. So if you wanted us to touch on anything a little further, feel free to request up. If not, that is completely okay. But thus far, what I see in the chat, Diop, a lot of people have been enjoying the conversation. So that's great news. So I'm going to go ahead and roll it into talking about public service. So public trust in the government remains at its historic lows, whether it's on the Senate side or the housing side. Oh, I'm sorry. There's somebody that came up. Hi, Sianka. You would like to ask Diop a question?
Hey, Miss Jazz. Hey, Diop. How you doing?
I'm good, Sianka. How you doing?
Good. I'm doing good, Jazz. I'm doing good, Mr. Harris. So, as far as housing, how do you feel about, do you have like any program that can support veterans? 'Cause I am a disabled veteran. I live in North Carolina, but I always speak up for veterans all over, wherever in the world where we are. But do you support a program that will actually do something for homeless veterans instead? Because it's a crime, in places where you cannot be homeless. So there are a lot of veterans who are homeless. So is there an actual program that would actually work that would help them take a step by step, not just put them in a house, but a step by step to get them into housing and to get them back on their feet?
Yeah. So it's sort of two layered for me. One, and this is sort of an approach I want to take with the VA as well as HHS, but with VA funding with the congressional budget navigators for veterans, either going through the rigmarole of applying for certain programs or getting all the way down to being sort of grassroots folks who are driving around in cars and like honestly picking folks up. Like and I am not a veteran, my father is, so I've kind of seen the secondhand of, sort of veterans are proud, some folks don't want to accept help from certain people. But if you have a veteran navigator who's able to have that cultural competency, maybe they will take support from that person. So I want to expand that sort of practice of these health navigators at HHS. And ultimately, it's because our systems are way too complicated, and it's almost as if you need a lawyer to navigate the system. So that's first off. But I also, on the HUD end, want to incentivize nationwide for us to be able to repurpose existing infrastructure. So I saw this in my district without federal support, where they took an old, I was going to say a Michigan grocery store, but let's just say like a Kroger. They took an old abandoned Kroger and it was gifted to a nonprofit, and it was turned into the senior center that had, pickleball, their lunch, a nursing center. They got their medicated computer labs. It was like Disney World for old people. So we have downtowns across America, but in our district that have office spaces that are underutilized. And I'm not sure if they're ever going to be refilled with office tenants. So my idea is that we offer incentives to these either developers or sort of folks who own properties, incentivize them to repurpose them for all-purpose housing. So we can turn what was a consultant firm, we can turn that to wraparound services and make it so it's, sort of short term, more transitional, so we can actually focus on the goal of like landing folks in longer term housing. But maybe it's a 90-day program in which, if folks need to focus on sobriety, hey, we got a good place for you. If you don't know where you're getting your daily meals from, great. We got you here. We got a caseworker here. We got all these supports to wrap around and to ensure you get to your next handoff, which is, your long-term housing. So that's my idea in what I want to fight for when I'm in Congress. I know that there's a wide coalition of people who are willing to work on this, Democrats included. But there is a key swath of Republicans who I am targeting. In fact, I feel that, on the Democratic side, we don't take enough risk. And who I'm targeting exactly is linking myself with Dan Crenshaw of Texas. He loves veterans, and he is someone that I can sort of read through the tea leaves. He thinks this Trump shit is bullshit. He's just playing along with it. Well, guess what? I can see that, and I'm gonna get shit done with him because hell, ain't nobody else gonna do it. And that's sort of the mentality I want to take with this campaign. I'm progressive as all get out. I'm running for for my Democratic nomination, but I'm not running to hold the banner for the Democratic Party. I believe that we have too many politicians that are, are beholden to the party, not people. So I think we need more politicians, more public servants, actually, who are willing to buck the system, take votes that are unpopular, but are very practical to your people back home. So thank you for Sianka, and I hope I answer your question.
You did fully, and thank your dad for his service, and thank you as well for your support. And you are right; there are veterans who are very prideful, and I like the idea of having various programs for them where they don't feel pushed, because they don't want to feel pushed, like they gotta have a house or they gotta go through this. So to have that open door programs, I think that is so brilliant, and I really appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Jazz.
Thank you, Sianka.
Whee!
All right. So I'm going to go back to talking about public trust. So Michigan state the legislators, they recently moved to offer large tax breaks to attract data centers in your state. But as a federal representative, once you're elected, how would you protect the public trust of your district, particularly the residents of your district, who fear that these facilities will monopolize on clean energy transitions and raise local power costs? And would you support federal water usage standards to ensure that the Great Lakes resources aren't being exploited to private tech profits?
Yeah. Well, you can know, trust, and believe that I will not be taken, or I will not be beholden to corporate interests, because I will not be taking any corporate PAC money. The same thing cannot be said for my opponent in my race, State Senator Sean McCann. He receives max out donations from Consumers Energy and DTE Energy. They are the two energy utility companies that form the energy duopoly in our state. And in fact, those two together are the most powerful lobbying force in our state. My primary opponent is taking money from them. He is also the energy chairman of the Michigan State Senate. So he is legislating based on the money that's going into his pockets, which is raising energy rates on our people. If you did not know this, Consumers and DTE are also the same two companies that are behind these massive hyperscale data centers. They have submitted contracts with the state that are blacked out completely. And Governor Gretchen Whitmer submitted a public comment in support of these blacked out contracts that are raising our energy rates. Meanwhile, her own attorney general has sued these companies based on these contracts. And the fact that they're, the rationale behind raising our rates aren't even for service upgrades. Guess what they're for? Private jet travel. So we're expensing, executive travel for literally no reason, making rates more expensive on us. And guess who's doing it? Democrats are. Big Gretch, she's behind this, and she endorsed my primary opponent, Sean McCann. So you need to look no further than Republicans to look for your corruption. Look to corporate Democrats. And so I'm running my campaign, people first, rejecting all corporate PAC money, because I actually want to see our communities change. We keep receiving this bad money. We're going to keep pushing out bad policy. So I'm flipping the script on that. And Jasby, I've been talking so much, I forgot the second part of your question there.
Oh no, you're fine. Just wanted you kind of answered my question regarding this, because ultimately, if you shoo away donors like that, they won't ask for anything in return, and ultimately you will be answering to the people that voted you in. So you pretty much answered my question on that. So I appreciate that. But it also kind of rolls into regarding the environmental portion, this also tails into like just the sovereignty of tribal lands and protecting those lands as well. So the federal law often kind of forgets about tribal lands and the sacredity of it, remembering that there's also it should also not only be protected on the sovereign level, but also an environmental portion. So my question to you is, although you're one of the indigenous members, you'll be one of the few actually to be elected in Congress. How would you use your position on the natural resources if you were to be on the committee to legislate and make sure that federal government honors its treaties and obligations while also fostering economic partnerships between the tribal nations in your community of Southwest Michigan?
Yeah. Well, yeah, if you were to be on the ground, you would know that indigeneity sort of is weaving in and out of my campaign. And I hope you all and the audience get a chance to watch my campaign more to sort of see that. But as it pertains to our environment, our relationship with Mother Earth is very special, and that informs my climate policy. If we don't have a world to live on, then what the hell does any of this, really matter for? And so uh, I believe, this is very controversial, but I think that in these moments where systems are being dismantled, we need to rethink how we believe us as a society should take care of the earth. So, as the Trump administration is dismantling the EPA, the Wildlife and Fish Service, the Department of Interior's mission is seemingly being changed. Well, I say we return the stewardship to native lands. How about instead of an EPA, how about we say that the Minnesota Chippewa tribes are now our new EPA of that region of the country? And in fact, I think that tribes take care of the land better than our federal government. Do you know who brought gray wolves back? It sure as hell wasn't the EPA or the Department of Interior. It was the White Earth Nation up in Minnesota. So that's sort of where I envision, and sort of its federal government's relationship with tribes. I want to change the relationship entirely. To this point, it has been a relationship based on consultancy. We are consulted upon on these decisions, and we're sort of treated like a check mark. We talk to the tribes, therefore we're all good to run amok on our project. And that's exactly what we saw with the Dakota Access Pipeline. What I want to do is I want to usher in a new era of tribal consent. You must get our explicit sign off. Tribes must, write pieces of legislation, sign off on resolutions before any, sort of work project starts. You know how much engagement you get from the federal government when they're waiting on tribes to pass a resolution? They be calling their asses every fucking day. So, but we have to be able to write this language into law, and also convince enough of a coalition to pass it. And I believe we have that with tribal nations, where they mainly found in rural areas. Where are those rural areas usually at? In places represented by Republicans. So imagine, us activating native voting blocks in all of these different places, showing to their Congress people they are a voice to be heard. So I believe we can usher in a new level of engagement with tribes to the federal government with the tribes. And if the tribes are able to return stewardship of the land, I believe, if the Oregon tribes got hold of, the controlled burn program, maybe we'd see less wildfires. If we can delegate, water rights amongst the Rocky Mountain tribes, maybe we wouldn't see, the water crisis that we're in today. So I think we have to massively rethink our relationships. But first things first, we got to get new leaders elected, because we ain't convincing these Republicans. Therefore, we got to replace them.
Thank you for that. And also, I don't know if you recall, maybe about a decade ago, there was an environmental crisis that happened up in Kalamazoo, Michigan, regarding the sand oil and how much it affected that community regarding health concerns. I meant to follow up on that when I've seen the documentary, but are you familiar with that? And could you speak to that as well? I know it's
Yeah.
not, I don't think it's a part of your district, but Is
No,
it? I'm sorry.
it goes straight through it.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
Enbridge, the oil company, they have a pipe that goes through the Kalamazoo River, and actually, the part where the pipeline bursted was in Battle Creek, Michigan, my hometown. So, one of the major oil spills this nation has ever witnessed happened in my hometown. It's burned in my memory. It smelled like oil in my hometown for months. And like I said, I come from Cereal City, USA, where the plants they make the city smell like cereal, and yet it smelled like burning oil for months. So I'm very aware of the bad actors in our state, particularly Enbridge, and I'm very skeptical of any project that they want to embark on in our state. And in fact, Enbridge is a famous trouncer of tribal treaty rights and trouncing on tribal lands. So one of the major pipelines in Michigan, Line 5, goes through tribes. Who's going to clean that up when that does burst? Because it's not a if, it's when. Enbridge has shown it's not a great actor when it comes to this. So we need to be more thoughtful when we engage in some of these projects. And when we know they're not going to work, let's just not do it. We don't have to pump more oil and gas. There are other ways to do this. And these aren't just, things that will benefit liberals. Like we employ more folks who build heat pumps that that helps out Republicans. If we install more solar panels, a lot of these installers are Republicans. So let's just stop calling this stuff woke. Let's have politicians that are courageous enough to have the conversation. But you got to have folks who have the cultural competency to actually know about these issues, speak to them, and then bring them to a wider public. And so that's what my campaign's trying to do, not just with Indigenous voters, not just with Black voters, but folks who just feel left out of the system entirely.
Absolutely. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and take a break, and we're going to do some rapid fire questions. So these are more political stuff. My first question is, so you got to kind of think quick on your feet. What is the number one issue facing Michigan's 4th district right now?
Hope and opportunity. I feel like folks feel like there's no way to get ahead. There's not really opportunity to do so. And I'm fighting to bring those back. So hope and opportunity.
All right. In one word, how would you describe your legislative style?
Creative.
All right. About labor unions, is it essential or vital?
Essential.
All right. What is the biggest barrier to rural broadband expansion in Southwest Michigan?
Greedy corporations.
One specific policy to lower childcare costs immediately.
Pay grandparents.
All right. If you could pass one bill by Senator Sherrod Brown, if he was still in office, and if you could pass it tomorrow, which would it be?
One that's here already, or one that I'd create?
If either you created or he tried to propose, but it didn't get passed, what would it be?
Longer answer here. I actually helped to organize a unit of the Congressional Workers Union when I was in Chair Brown's office, and we were working on passing legislation that would make it so Senate staffers could organize. Because when I was organizing it, it very much was against the rules, or against Senate rules. So I would pass the legislation that would allow workers to unionize in the Senate.
Absolutely. All right. What would you choose? Public schools or private vouchers?
Public.
I know that's easy. All right.
I went to Head Start too, so.
All right. Which congressional caucus are you joining when elected?
CBC.
All right. Are you going to join other ones as well besides CBC?
Let me let the audience in on something. So the Progressive Caucus, it isn't as it seems. Parts of it are old boy-ish. Sort of the arm wrangling to force you into votes sort of thing. You needing to pay into the caucus. So it's sometimes it can be more of a money club than an ideological committee. So honestly, I got to be frank with you. I would need to see the leadership of the caucus before I commit to joining. It would seem clear as day, someone like me would be a part of the Congressional Progressive Caucus. But I'm no fan of doing business as usual, so I would be, fighting for reforms on the caucus or any caucus and making sure they align with my values and the values of people before I commit to that.
No, thank you for the insight. I didn't know that. That was one of the requirements to join the Progressive Caucus. Okay, so lastly, regarding the rapid fire, what is the most misunderstood part of the federal financial reform?
Financial reform. All of it. it's I just want to say that, and I know we're at time here. So we can't treat the federal government like a household budget. The federal government can print more money. So dollars aren't the thing that constrain us. It's resources. Do we have enough water to produce this? Do we have enough trees to make rubber, humans to do this work? So do not believe these industry lies saying we can't pay for it. Do we have enough resources is the question that we need to answer, and we always have enough.
Yeah, I know you said we're at time, but we have about 30 more minutes. If that's okay
good.
with you. I wasn't sure if you had another engagement or something.
I'm all good.
Okay. All right, fine. All right, so that just wraps up the political rapid fire portion. So I still have the fun ones I want to get to you on. But before that, I want to talk about education. So Governor Whitmore's budget aims for universal pre-K, but the state still relies heavily on federal grants to subsidize these costs for low-income families. So my question to you is, how would you ensure that the federal government remains stable partner in the funding for universal pre-K, especially for rural districts in Southwest Michigan that lack the local tax base to fund it alone?
Well, yeah, I mean, as a member of Congress, I would vote to protect that funding. I would make sure we have robust funding, and year over year, I would find new ways where we can expand programming. We don't need to needlessly spend money where we don't need to, but when it comes to our children and families, absolutely we do. And across this country, even before the Trump administration, before Doge, communities have faced disinvestment. And so my job is to make sure those communities that have been unheard, they do go heard and they do go invested in, so that you can rely on me to do that. But I do think that there's other solutions to making sure that our young ones get, their education and that they're cared for. I mentioned one quick example. I believe that to lower the cost of childcare, one of our options can be to reform the tax code so that we can provide direct payments to elders who take care of their grandkids, allowing grandparents to be grandparents again. And so I think that's a way that we can make sure folks are kept in culturally relevant environments. They can be cared for by their loved ones, and maintain a sense of family throughout it. This is labor that families are already doing, so we can make sure that that is being paid for. Elders can then buy food for their loved ones. And I am in full support of Head Start. And in some cases, that is, folks' pre-K option. That was for my sister, and that was for myself. And I'm in favor of sort of what was in the Build Back Better plan, that would have constituted universal child care. So I am supportive of, supporting the system we have now, but I understand that is not enough. And sort of the more sexy talking points don't get us there, get us all the way there either. So I think it's going to be a wide portfolio of us, looking at every angle of the government and seeing how we can make sure more families have more resources to take care of their kids.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. So we do have someone up here to ask you a question, Diop. So Ayana, how are you? What is your question for Diop? Or you have a comment?
I am well. How are you, Jazz? Hello, Mr.
Good.
Harris.
Hey, Ayana, how you doing?
Hi. I'm assuming you saw the hearing, the Pam Bondi hearing yesterday, or have you caught clips of it?
I've caught in certain notes. I actually haven't seen any footage of it, but I've seen sort of the headlines.
Okay. Well, you could still answer this, I think. There are these, the congressional oversight committees, and they have the Judiciary Committee, and they have finance and all of that. When a group or a secretary or an undersecretary or whoever is brought before Congress to answer questions, they should answer questions, right? If they don't answer questions, sometimes the only penalty is contempt of Congress. Do you think there should be some other penalty? Because listen, Pam Bondi's behavior was horrendous. It wasn't that she didn't answer the question. She was purposely misleading. She was yelling. She was screaming. She was very out of line. It just, I guess my question is more about decorum and what Congress can do to get parties who are responsible for certain functions at the executive level or the judicial branch to be responsible, right? You bring them before Congress, and if they don't answer the questions, all they can do is, there's really, it just seems like there's no penalty. And you all have the power of the purse. When you get to Congress, you have the power of the purse. You're giving these different agencies money, and they're not telling you how they're spending it. They're not spending it the way they're supposed to be spending it. What do you think the penalty should be for that?
I mean, I think they should, I think the penalty of jail time should be, on the table. I think we need to rewrite some of our laws to put that on the books. When folks are outright lying to us, like we've seen from, so-called Dr. Oz and RFK, especially when it comes to public health. This isn't something to score political points. It's going to get somebody killed. Some of the misinformation that they're sort of putting out there. Pam Bondi, I'd be the quickest one to vote for her impeachment. And that's not just a thing to say. Impeachment should be taken very seriously.
Yeah.
I don't think the country should be without an attorney general, but we shouldn't be with an attorney general who's covering up the biggest sex crime the United States of America has ever seen. She is unqualified for her job, and I believe is acting in a criminal manner. Obviously, these folks do not feel shame at all. I don't think that that's a pressure point for them. We just have to remove them from these positions, and we have to win politically. The right wing, these Republican nut jobs, have taken these instrumental levers of power from us because they've either convinced us to disengage or we felt complacent enough not to be participatory. But that's ultimately how we take this back. Is by winning the political argument and fucking ripping them out of those jobs. Kristi Noem and her Department of Homeland Security cannot be allowed to fucking harm another American citizen, not just murder out in the cold blood on video.
Sorry.
Go for it.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but if you see like fruit in the chat, that means we're trying to redirect the algorithm. So you were saying like some triggering words,
sorry,
so say
my
words
bad.
like smecks or unalive.
Sorry about that.
So triggering words just kind of replace it like as though you're speaking to a child. But yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
Got it. Sorry about that. Don't want to mess up the algo. But yeah, so we have unaccountable systems of government.
Right.
And ultimately, we have to win that argument, vote more members in, and that is so frustrating to even say on my end, and probably frustrating to hear. But that's how we get them out. I don't believe right now that we have laws on the books to do that. So we just got to get more numbers and get them out that way.
Okay, sounds good. Well, thank you very much for answering my question. And when you watch that, try not to have your mouth open for too long. Okay. Make sure you keep the water next to you, drink water often, because it'll have you stunned. It really will. But
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank
and before
you.
you drop, Ayanna,
Yes.
I also think. Do you think there also should be more enforcement if the members in the committee if they have to abide by the rule that they cannot engage in personalities? I think the witnesses should do the same. Do you agree?
I agree. Absolutely,
Yeah,
100%.
And
right.
to put the teeth on that, I think that these rules should be enforceable by Capitol Police. So take the sort of the power out of the hands of the executive branch. And so if they're going to be stepping on the Capitol Hill, lying, acting crazy, we can do exactly what they do to protesters. We can zip tie them and we can throw them in the lock cage, and they got to bail themselves out. So if a secretary wants to go and do that on the Hill, then go ahead. We know how to take them out.
Okay.
So I worked on Capitol Hill and I saw it every week.
Isn't there
Okay.
like a jail in the Capitol, like a
It's
temporary holding
it's in the
cell?
parking lot. So like
Oh,
I
There's
would
a
be in
jail in
favor.
the parking lot?
So yeah, you walk right out of Congress and like there's the Capitol Police Building and the jail's right there. So hey, RFK, you want to go act up? Great.
All
You got a
right.
tour.
Thank you. Wow. Okay. All right. Thanks a lot.
all right. Thank you, Ayana. Okay. All right. So this is a good segue into going into let's see, we can go into healthcare. So, like a lot of states, your state, particularly in Michigan, is going through hospital closures. Particularly, your state is going. It's on count to be up to about 13. They're on the brink of closing, which is very. It's considered to be like an immediate high risk, not high risk, but immediate. And also, a lot of people don't know. Entities like Medicaid help keep these rural hospitals open, and also with the funding of Medicare. But my question to you regarding this is, would you support a federal standby capacity payment model to pay rural hospitals for keeping emergency rooms, regardless of how many patients they see in a day? If you are you familiar with the capacity payment?
I actually would take it a step further. I would invoke
Okay.
the Defense Production Act to bring our staffing levels up to where they need to be. Currently, we're facing a medical professional shortage that goes, from nurses, anesthesiologists, doctors. We need more folks in these fields, and we have to provide pathways for them to get there. So I think that sort of the prescription you brought up, it would help for right now, but I think this is a longer term problem, and we need to treat it like a matter of national security. So that is sort of how I would treat this movement. I want to talk about my primary opponent really quick because in Michigan there's and I'll talk about the hospital angle in a second, but there's the Safe Patient Care Act, which would institute safe patient ratios for nurses, making sure that private equity can't force nurses to care for 100 folks at a time and make sure patients get the actual care they deserve. And my primary opponent stands on the other side of that. And I have no idea why. He receives support from lobbying firms and insurance companies that obviously don't support this, but he's a Democrat, and it makes no sense. Um, so I'll say about the hospital situation because I've spoken to providers in my area, and some folks, they're like, "Hey, we're not going to close, but we're going to shut down a lot of services." So there's, Bronson, a health network here in my local area. They just opened up a mental health clinic. Well, they're essentially going to be, running one out of the 9 programs that they were, going to start off with. They're going to close down half of the wing, and this place just opened up last year. And it's because they're not receiving those Medicaid reimbursements. And there's a fallout effect on sort of our houseless population. Those social safety nets that they get that pass-through funding from these larger organizations that are Medicare reimbursement dependent. So it's not just the hospitals, but it's a larger network of social supports that are also going under because of these. And so I know that the Share Center that I'm a part of, that's a recovery and self-help center, is facing some of those cuts, and they're very vital. I sit on their board, and we're running community fundraising to make sure this place can keep its lights on. But that's not how it should work. We shouldn't, have our health insurance be GoFundMe's. We should have a system that actually works. So I would obviously vote to strengthen our healthcare system to make sure these hospitals don't close. But yeah, I just wanted to give you a taste of reality of how it actually feels here in Southwest Michigan.
And I appreciate your answer on that because ultimately, as you said, you would agree with the payment plan, but it's just a temporary fix. It's not a long term permanent fix. So I appreciate your answer on that. And there is a candidate in our chat named Vince Bostic. He's running for New York 8. He said that he hopes to never have to answer a question after you. So I think that is a good response. But there's also a question regarding the environmental
Good to see you.
portion. If you want to circle back to that, Eric, the awful said they're from Michigan, and how do you feel about the pollution?
Yeah. So pollution, it really comes down to our waters. We a lot of folks are familiar with the Flint water crisis, but that's on the opposite side of the state. For me, I'm sort of on the Lake Michigan edge of Michigan, and sort of what we're seeing are PFAS is our huge concern, and folks sort of runoff and sort of bigger industry partners who are polluting our lands. And so PFAS is, sort of killing native, fish, plants, obviously getting into humans' bloodstreams. And so what I want to do is to take on these bad corporate actors. I want to empower the EPA, or what eventually is going to be the EPA once we get Trump out of office, to actually go after these actors. I want the FTC to go after soil companies if they're lying about what they're putting into their sort of their fertilizer. I want to make sure that the things that we create are actually good for human bodies and for the plants that we're looking to grow. I think there's other concerns when it comes to sort of data centers that may show a different face of pollution. It may suck our communities dry of water completely. Some of these waters that these plants use are unusable afterward. So that's a source of denigration of our local environments as well. Here in Kalamazoo, there's a local situation where a car wash company wanted to place its site right near a riverbank. And the community was able to step up and make sure that that project did not move forward, and saving, Asylum Lake in Kalamazoo for generations. So people here are fired up about protecting their local environments. Water is very special to us. We're the water wonderland, and that's something that I'm very fired up and passionate about addressing here. And I see a question that says Muskegon, is it a part of our district? And it is not. My district goes as north as Holland in Ottawa County, but it does not reach Kent County below Grand Rapids. So, yeah.
All right, and also regarding that, I want to circle back to the environmental portion. There has been a few court cases that the Supreme Court has heard regarding EPA regulations, and more specific about, there was a recent, I guess you could say, a recent ruling regarding to limit the scope about the waters in the United States. I think it's called the Waters in the United States rule. And that also affects places like Michigan regarding the pollutants, how to regulate water pollution. And that will also affect places like Michigan. So I wanted to know, like, how would you lead in the House legislatively to restore the EPA's ability to protect the small tribal areas and wetlands that feed into Lake Michigan? Because a lot of people don't know Lake Michigan is very important. It's a large body of water, which share both in Canada and for the United States. So just can you give me your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I would legislate some of those protections that, were instilled via, executive rulemaking. So it's very flimsy, can be sort of changed based on what president's in and out. But I would want to make that an act of Congress saying that these waters are protected. And referring back to earlier part of our conversation, where we're going to return stewardship of the land to Native communities. If you look at a map, you can, see what lines that Lake Michigan area, and it's nothing but tribes until you get to about Chicago, and then it's a city. But for a large part of, and then sort of you get further up Illinois and Wisconsin, and both sides of Lake Michigan, it's tribes. And so who do you think knows that area better than them? Than us. And so that's sort of what I'm saying. Let our environmental departments manage our rivers and watersheds, and watch our deer, and sort of manage our local bison population as well. So I think there's a lot that tribes can do and know, to make sure that our waters are protected, and making sure that local communities are bought in on it. Right now, we have big corporations that are threats to our water systems. We've got nuclear plants, we've got auto companies, we've got these data centers. companies around the country know that we have vast resources, and Michigan has a wide spotlight on it right now. And so we need leaders. We need community members to take ownership of their own communities. We're going to need some of these projects because we want jobs and we want this technology that's going to revolutionize our futures, but we don't have to give away our communities in the process. So we just got to remain engaged from the very beginning.
And do you feel like there needs to be regulations put back in place to conserve these areas for like the bison and buffalo populations as well to continue to grow and not be interrupted by environmental risk?
I do believe so. I think that, we at least need to have some sort of acknowledgement that these are endangered species, but like I said, I think tribes should be empowered to take care of these sorts of species and watch out for them. With our practices, we hunt, but we do it in a sustainable way that really manages the population and makes sure it keeps that special relationship we have with Mother Earth. So we won't overhunt, and we keep an eye out to make sure that the population is one that is growing and robust. It wasn't until European settlement onto this country until we saw the bison population die off. So, and we see that with wolverines in Michigan. We used to have beavers here until who showed up. So you let us return to our ways and let our practices be at the fore. I think you'll see a lot of stuff start to recover in our area. And I've seen it with my own eyes, and I really wish y'all could come to the district and see it for yourselves.
Absolutely. I'm not sure what that question is regard to. Someone asked, "Are you battling or against it?" What is that regarding? I wasn't sure. I know we talked about a few things before that question was posed.
Yeah.
Whoever asked that question, can you kind of give us in reference to what was that about? Gambling. I don't know if I can say the word. I'm sorry.
Am I against gambling or no?
Betting. Yeah. Are you against it or are you for it? Yeah.
I mean, if we're talking about sports gambling, I think there needs to be a massive amount of consumer protections around it. I think the apps themselves have been gamified to get people to spend more money or using the lingo here. When you play those games on the DK app, you start to, it encourages bad behavior. And I think there needs to be consumer protections around the creation of the apps themselves, but also practices with, spending dollars on these apps. Because, we've seen teens, sort of,
Yes.
commit worse acts. So I don't want those things to happen. I don't want people to be frauded, but I do think it's sort of a recreational activity that humans have engaged in since the beginning of time. I think that if it's something that can be treated with moderation, it could be a nice outlet. A casino could be a fun place for young people to hang out at, if it's treated responsibly and with moderation. I think supports need to be there, just as it would be for, folks who may drink too much, may smoke too much. But am I saying, folks can't, watch a game and, want to have some stakes on it? I wouldn't eliminate it, but I would just want to make the environment much more safer.
Okay. All right. So this goes down to our last portion of the rapid fire. So these are more fun. So can you tell me what's the best place to grab a bite in Battle Creek?
Figs Burgers in Battle Creek.
Okay. What do you get on the menu from Figs Burgers?
It's a double cheeseburger. It's an old black dude that owns this. He's owned it since the 80s, and he only serves during lunchtime. Get some crinkle cut fries with it. The bomb.
Okay. So if you were to choose between Michigan State versus U of M, do you even have to think about it?
No, I went to
If you
Michigan
could.
State. Go green.
Okay. All right. And your favorite Potawatomi tradition or community event?
At our powwows, it's just a celebration of culture during the summer events. But we have these things called Indian tacos, and it's a piece of fry bread, put chili, tomatoes, cheese, lettuce, sour cream. I love our powwows just to get an Indian taco every year.
Okay. So what's a cereal city staple? Cornflakes or Frosted Flakes?
Frosted Flakes for sure. In my hometown, every black family it was a box of Frosted Flakes that had my Jameson next to the shuttle she rode in on. And so Frosted Flakes for sure. But my favorite Kellogg cereal was Frosted Mini Wheats. And I know that's like kind of an old person cereal, but I love it.
Okay. All right. What's your go-to song to get hyped before a track and field meet?
I mean, this was back in high school, so we talking 2011, 12. That was No Hands, Waka Flocka, but I'm probably listening
Okay,
to
that's
I'm
a
probably
banger.
listening to Mo Bamba. That's my all-time get hype song.
Okay. And for the DC, which one would you choose, the DC Metro or driving Michigan back roads?
Oh, DC Metro, but can't I can't say a non-Michigan answer though. I want to
Okay.
bring DC Metro to Michigan. I want to expand public transit and make it so we can not drive cars as much here.
Okay. And one thing you miss most about Michigan when you're in Washington?
The open space, like you can't see night skies in DC because there's so much light pollution. Like there's not as much water. Like it's just a lot of open air and just I love Michigan. I hate the Save Act for the question down there, but Michigan is the most beautiful state in the union. I will stand 10 toes down. Everybody in the chat, y'all should come visit. Y'all hit me up. I'll show y'all around.
All right. And what regarding the Michigan season, which one would you choose? Summer on the lake or winter in the snow?
Summer on Lake Michigan, baby.
Now, can you
That-
tell me this? Do people really walk on the frozen lake?
Oh yeah. Yeah, it gets about like that much frozen and like I've done it before.
That thick of ice? Oh
Oh yeah.
wow.
It gets
Okay.
like it was -5 degrees the first week of January, so it gets cold.
Now, has there been stories where the ice broke and authorities have to come and save people?
It ain't happened to me, I know that.
Okay. All right. And what is your all-time political hero?
Barack Obama. While we may not align on every issue, he's the one that gave me the inspiration to get in this movement. So I would say he's number one, John Lewis number two, and not the old man John Lewis, the 20-year-old John Lewis who's doing unpopular shit. And Fred Hampton. I
No,
know he's
add
sort
one
of
more so we can do a Mount Rushmore. So you said Barack Obama. You said what was the second one?
John Lewis, Fred
John Lewis.
Hampton, and I'll say this is out there, FDR. Given the states of the country at the time, I think Barack is my favorite president. I think FDR was the greatest president.
Absolutely. Okay. That's a good lineup. I like that. Okay. So, if anyone has any more questions for Diop, feel free to request up or ask any more questions. But there is one here that says, what is the go-to place to fish in Lake Michigan?
If it's the go-to fish species, I would say it's either lake perch. It's probably lake perch. That's probably the go-to. The spot to fish. A lot of people like to charter fish off of Lake Michigan and Benton Harbor, but my family grew up working class, so we're the type to just get our little tackle box and go to a bridge and just sit there for a couple hours. So any spot that's open, really.
And someone said, what is the stance on negotiation and compromise with the right? Or do you, what is your, yeah, that's a good one. What is your idea about bipartisanship and what does that look like for you if we were to use the word like bipartisanship regarding governing in Congress?
Yeah.
For you?
So I don't think it's a thing between the left and the right anymore. It's between sitters and fighters, people who sit around and do nothing or sit around and take advantage of people, and the people who are willing to fight for their communities. And so I think that's bipartisan. We've got people like Dan Crenshaw, like Tom Massey. Fuck, if I was in Congress the same time as her, I was going to be riding with Marjorie Taylor Greene. You heard her on Gaza, on Epstein, like that ain't somebody I'm about to vote with on voting rights, but we had some things in common. And so she's willing to fight for her people in a much different way than me, but like is a fighter. And so it's identifying those kind of people, no matter what party they prescribe to, and getting shit done for your people. The Democratic Party does not show up for us, whether that's young people, indigenous people, black people. I'm not queer, but if it's queer people, go down the list. They show up for money. And so we need not, view the world in that spectrum. So I'm going to view it as, who's willing to fight for their community or who's willing to sit around.
And someone asked, would you go to the call centers?
No, I am trying to get call time eliminated from my schedule. I only do about 4 hours a day just because we need to keep the lights on. But like my campaigns focus on being in person on the ground. Like I'm engaged in this digital town hall right now, but I'm physically at the Berrien County Democratic Party meeting. Their monthly meeting is going on like right outside this door. And as soon as I get off this, I'm gonna go speak to them. So like I focus much more of my time on engaging with people because honestly, how else are you going to win this campaign other than to convince a bunch of people to vote for you? So that's what I'm focused on.
Absolutely. And lastly, for you, Diop, thank you for joining us tonight. It has been a great conversation. I can't believe the hour and a half flew by so fast. That definitely tells me this was a great talk. But lastly, what is your message or your final message to voters ahead of the primary elections?
No, absolutely. I appreciate the time, Jazz. Appreciate the time our vote counts for having me on. My message is this. We have a chance to decide the future of our country. And this is told to us election after election after election. But really, I know y'all feel this is different. We got a choice of whether we can send corporate Democrats up to Washington to go do nothing at all, or we can send real fighters to Congress. That's our choice. If we look at the polling numbers right now, congressional Republicans are as unpopular as they have ever been. So we have a massive opportunity to flip this entire Congress and take the reins of power. But guess who are more unpopular than Republicans right now? Congressional Democrats. Congressional Democrats are the most or the most unpopular political figure ever recorded. So if we have candidates that are running to be more of the same, hell, we should just give up right now. And so I'm asking you to support me in my campaign because I am different. I'm going to be a fighter. I'm rejecting corporate PAC money. I've got a decade of campaign experience under my belt, and I was a Capitol Hill staffer. I have the experience to win this race and to do the job. I just need the support of people like y'all on this call to not only spread my message, but to contribute to this campaign as well. I'm not looking to drain your wallets, but if you had it to support us with the tune of a $5 or a $20 donation on a recurring basis, that would mean a lot to our campaign so that we can not only keep the lights on, but so we can reach out to more voters, build a coalition to win this race and to represent our people for the long haul. So I just thank everybody for engaging. Go to diop4mi.com to figure out more ways to get involved with our campaign. And feel free to DM me if you want to hear more other than what I got to say tonight. But I appreciate the time and space.
And is your primary elections August 4th, correct?
August 4th, 2026.
All right, so everybody, yes, so all the Michiganders, the primary elections are August 4th. So please mark that on your calendars. More importantly, as I said from OVC, if you haven't heard it from me, you've heard it from other moderators on this platform. The primary elections are very, very important because you make your voice heard before the actual election. So please mark your calendar and remind yourself to go ahead and make your voice heard on August 4th in Michigan. So I have two things I want to invite you to, Diop, before you go. So I would like for you to join us on our next town hall to listen to two great candidates. Actually, we will have the candidate Joseph Perez Caputo. We have him tomorrow. He is running for Connecticut's 4th Congressional District. So feel free to stop by. We will have Joseph Caputo at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I'm sorry, and I skipped another candidate. Her name is Veronica Williams. She is running for U.S. House District 23. We will have her at 7 p.m. on tomorrow as well. So we have a double header. So if you can't make the 7 p.m. to listen to the conversation, feel free to stop by to listen to Joseph Perez Caputo. So those are two good candidates that are running for Congress as well. And lastly, we do have a candidates roundtable, and we invite candidates like you to come up on the panel. It's about 6 of them from what I recall. And we bounce off topic questions, specifically current events that have happened. And you and other candidates like you will have a conversation just about everyday policy and the current events. And this is usually held no more than like 2 hours. So feel free to look out for your email invitation from us if you would love to participate. That will be February 15th which is coming up this coming Sunday. If you can't make the 15th of February, we will have another one March the 1st. So I know your campaign is going to be ramping up really, really quickly. So before you get super, super busy, we would love to have you back. And if you win your primaries, we definitely want to see you back before November. So most definitely. So yes, please look out for our invitation email regarding the roundtable, the candidates roundtable.
Yep.
So,
And Eric, I'll pay attention to that House resolution you sent over. But I marked that on my calendar, so thank you.
Yes, and once again, thank you for being here, Diop. It has been a great conversation listening to you and your thoughts and your campaign. I want to also thank OVC for hosting this live stream town hall. I want to also thank the participants of the live who come every single day to hear about great candidates like you. And also, I want to give a special shout out to our team in the back end that does all the work that you don't see when it comes to these graphics, setting up the town halls, corresponding with you and your campaign managers. Also, our research team. We have an HR department. We are our leadership team. Everyone who is involved, those who are just our support. All of that is important. No job is bigger than the other. Every job that people participate in matters. So I want to give you all a special shout out to know that your work, it does not go unnoticed. So with that being said, for those who are not familiar with OVC, we are a nonpartisan movement uniting Americans from all walks of life who empower voters, support candidates of integrity, and ensure that every voice is heard. Through education, outreach, accountability, and action, we're building a stronger democracy. So with one informed vote at a time, please join us because your vote is your power. So until then, see you all tomorrow. Have a great day. Thank you again, Mr. Diop, and good luck.
See y'all.